I talk a lot about my boys' healing journeys, how our second child spent the first 2.5 years of his life purely surviving until we rebalanced his gut and his body finally healed. And a couple of years later, we got to experience that same transformation with our fourth child. I often share how I rebalanced my own gut alongside them. I was pregnant and breastfeeding during their healing, and that process completely changed me as a woman. If you've been here for a while, you've probably heard bits of that story. You know how I set out on an experiment to rebalance my whole family. And for 6 years now, all of us have lived the only method as our everyday lifestyle. We live and breathe everything that I share here. But one story that hasn't been told enough is my husband Ty's. Today, he's joining me on the show to share his experience, and we are going in deep. We talk about his childhood, years of being a competitive swimmer, constant chlorine exposure, the reoccurring strep throat that led to multiple rounds of antibiotics every year, and then the acne and Accutane, the antidepressants, the sleeping medication. All of the things our culture normalizes that quietly chips away at our health and who we are. We'll talk about how healing our boys and healing our family helped Ty finally connect the dots in his own story, and how, for the first time, he could see how everything from his decade of addiction to his food cravings to his lifelong struggle with anxiety and depression was all connected. We'll also share how we navigate things like swimming pools and chlorine exposure now, how we live incredibly mindful while still giving our children a full, thriving life, one where they don't feel like they're missing out. And Ty's going to open up about where he is today, living medication free and the most grounded and healthy he's ever been. We talk about how our sex life has completely transformed and how going all in with this microbiome lifestyle together as partners and parents is so powerful. This is going to be a raw and vulnerable conversation, and we're throwing everything out there in hopes that it empowers you. Maybe this will be the episode that you sit down and listen to with your partner so they can really hear what this lifestyle is all about. Maybe it helps you connect the dots in your own story, your upbringing, your body, your health, even how your body birthed your child. Maybe it will help you understand what might have contributed to your child's imbalanced microbiome and remind you that you never have to settle. It is never too late to heal. Welcome to the Follow Your Gut podcast, the show for the woman who's ready to stop outsourcing her and her family's health and start leading it. I'm your host, Juniper. Every week, I'll teach you how to understand your body and your child's symptoms through the lens of the gut so you can take clear, confident steps towards real healing. This isn't about chasing symptoms or following trendy protocols. This is about foundational healing, where we get to the root of it all, your gut. I am so happy you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the podcast, babe. I don't think we've had a conversation on here in probably over 100 episodes.
So 2 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
A lot's changed since you've been on here, and now we're moving into summer, and I have so many people asking questions about swimming and chlorine, and I've really been wanting to have this conversation with you for a long time, but it feels very timely right now. So I want to start by introducing you to our listeners. I want our listeners to get to know you because you are very involved in Only Now, and you show up every day with a lot of passion. And I think it comes from the same place that my passion comes from, is you've personally experienced the transformations. And so will you tell us about you and your upbringing and competitive swimming? And we'll just kind of make connections as we go through the conversation.
Yeah. I grew up in Salt Lake. My parents are Mormon. I have three sisters, an older sister, two younger sisters, and pretty typical growing up in Utah. So my dad went to work every day, um, and my mom stayed home. She had odd jobs kind of as we were growing up to like supplement income along the way, but always was at home and running errands and taking care of four kids and all of our sports and activities. And but we lived in a nice neighborhood. We walked to school, um, and um, and I think it was kind of there. It's kind of the last generation. It seems like this where we're just kind of free range kids. If my mom was gone, we were just out and about having fun and wandering around with our friends. And my best friends one lived across the street, one lived next door to me. And we would adventure and have fun and build things and get in trouble. Nothing crazy, but we'd ride our bikes to 7-Eleven and play video games. And we'd go to the mall and get books and baseball cards. And it was just kind of what you picture as like fun summer uh, as a kid. So I joined a swim team when I was 6 years old. My family became members of a country club that was in our neighborhood. And you could start on the swim team when you were 6. And it was just May 15th. I have this date in my head because I went there for so many years. You could start May 15th, and then it typically ended the first week of August, usually on my birthday, which is August 4th. And so that was kind of the season. And usually it was for the first 2 years, it was really just a summer activity. So we'd get dropped off in the morning. We'd have swim practice for an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. At that time, I was still doing swimming lessons. So we'd go have a snack in the snack bar and then do another half hour of swimming lessons. And then usually, because my mom had 4 kids and everybody else had swimming lessons too. So we typically spent kind of the rest of the day at the swimming pool. And then in the evening, twice a week, there was a swim meet. And that's when my dad would come and he would be there. All the dads would show up in their, back then everybody wore a suit. And so they'd all be wearing their suits on the side of the pool. It was really fun. It was idyllic. I loved it. We played tennis. We swam. My swim coach, Roger Haglund, was my swim coach he taught me how to swim when I was 6. And I love him to this day. As I got older, he gave me one of my first jobs. When I got in trouble as a 20 something, I called him to bail me out of jail. I didn't call my parents. I still love that man. He's an incredible person. But that kind of got me onto swimming. I wasn't the best ball sport guy. I was small. I wasn't good at basketball. My parents didn't want me to play football. I think I would have been terrible at football, although I pictured in my head I'd be super fast and good, but I don't think that's the case. And swimming was just one of those things where you just have to practice. That's it. You don't have to have any other skill other than willing to work hard. And that was me. And so by the time I was 9, I was on a year-round swim team. So the high school down the road from us had a year-round program. And so there was country club in the summer, and then age group in the wintertime. And I just kind of did that all the time. By the time I was, in high school, that was the only sport that I did. I did soccer, I played tennis, I played the violin. I did those things growing up. They came and went, but swimming, I always felt confident in swimming because I knew that all I needed to do was work hard. Swimming, I went all through high school. I started coaching swimming and teaching swimming lessons when I was in high school, and continued that until I was, what, 28?
Yeah, you were coaching when I met you.
Yeah. And, I'd be in the pool, I'd be at the pool, 4 hours a day coaching. I'd be in the water for at least 2 hours a day. Um, it was, I didn't have to take showers. I didn't have to wear deodorant. When I sweat, at the time when I would sweat, I smelled like chlorine. I also, as I got older, I transitioned into masters swimming. And so I was swimming another hour a day on a team. Like, when you add it all up, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of hours in a swimming pool. And I know you're going to ask some questions about that, but that's kind of like
That's
my,
your exposure
yeah,
to swimming and
a
how
lot.
it
It
is
was, yeah,
in the most amazing ways and interesting ways that we've been able to make connections through learning about our microbiome has helped us understand you as a person and what's influenced you in all the best and more challenging ways, right? So
yeah,
throughout your swimming, especially, I remember we talked a lot about like in high school, you were on the swim team and you also played water polo and
yeah,
you, like a lot of teenage boys, you had acne. I think you said it wasn't even that bad,
it
but,
really wasn't that bad.
um, but you come from a very Western family,
Yeah,
and anytime something comes up, you go to the doctor and you just take the prescription medications and you move on. And so the other day you were sharing with me, you remember being on antibiotics so frequently and you took Accutane. So can we talk about that part
yeah,
of swimming?
yeah. So in high school, swimming practice was 2.5 hours in the morning and then an hour and 45 minutes after school. Um, it was, so what is that, 4 hours a day? And then I also almost always had like a lifeguard class or some other class that I had to get in the water every day, in one of my classes, because I never took regular PE. So there was always like whatever. Um, and, um, and so my skin was dry because I'm in the water constantly, getting out, drying off. And so yeah, I went through puberty and had some acne. And of course, when you're 15, it seems like the end of the world if you have 3 pimples. And I know my older sister had uh, acne. I even like calling it acne seems so absurd right now because it wasn't, we didn't have acne. We had a couple pimples. And, um, and at the time, I don't know if they do Accutane at all anymore, but that was supposed to get rid of acne. And so it was really intense. Like you had like it was, they were individually packaged. You had a day-to-day thing, like it had all these things, like it causes birth defects and all these things. So like if you were a woman, you had to have a pregnancy test every month to make sure that you weren't pregnant. Like it was a very harsh drug that one of the side effects is that really, really dries out your skin. And so my skin was already really dry. And then it made it even worse. So like it would almost be like I had a sunburn almost for, when I think you went on and off cycles, if I remember right. So you'd cycle on for a little while, see if it worked. If it didn't, then you would take it again. Um, and my skin was just absolutely screaming. And so then we got a prescription for a lotion. I have no idea what it was. Like Cetaphil was like the nice one that you would get. At the time, it was fancy. Is it fancy anymore?
I have no idea.
I have no idea. But then I also had a medicated one that was for my face specifically because my face just hurt so bad. But then being in the water all the time and being, we spit on each other and everybody's peeing in the pool and like you don't dry your ears out all the way. And so being in a pool can be really gross, and you do it for a long enough time. So I always got a couple infections a year. One was I always got strep at least once. I always got a sinus infection, which was the worst because you have to go underwater over and over, and the pressure would just be insane. And usually I'd get at least one or two styes a year in my eyes. Um, and and for all of those, we would just go to Instacare, and usually ear infections, not as frequently, but probably again once a year I'd get a terrible ear infection. And so for every one of those instances, I'd go get antibiotics. And it was at the same time, about 15 or 16, is when I started getting depressed too. And so I think it was probably my senior year of high school when I started taking Zoloft for the first time. And so I was off Accutane at that point, but still consistently taking antibiotics as needed uh, for all of these infections. And then that's when depression started. Um, and my senior year was a really, really heavy time of depression for me. I was the captain of the swim team. I was the captain of the water polo team. I really loved participating, but it got harder and harder to show up every day. And I had a lot of pressure from my parents to go on a mission and be a member of the church that they were part of, the Mormon church, which I just didn't want to participate in. And it was just a lot of pressure. And I really wanted to go swim in college. And so we went on a recruiting trip to California, went to UC Irvine and University of Redlands. And but I didn't really have a lot of positive feedback from my parents as to doing something like that. They just wanted me to go on a mission. And so I ended up not swimming. I was emotionally done. I was burned out of, 12 years, 13 years of swimming competitively. And depression was really hard. And I kind of felt lost. I didn't have a team anymore. And that's when I started drinking. So right after high school, I decided I wasn't going to swim the next year. And up until then, I'd never had a drink, and I started drinking then. And then, you can fast forward 10 years until I got into treatment. But yeah, it started right after high school.
So, throughout your decade of addiction, were you on antidepressants during that time?
I'd go on and off. A lot of it depended on how connected I was with my parents at the time. There'd be periods of time where, like, I would be living at home and clearly having a lot of problems, and so they would take me to our pediatrician, I assume. I don't even remember. Um, I don't. I have no recollection now that I think about it. Zero recollection of whoever prescribed me antidepressants, which is
Were you,
bizarre.
did you ever take like any anxiety medication? Or when I met you, I think you also took sleeping medication.
So after I got out of treatment, so I never took anxiety medication, which I'm grateful for, because it's one of the hardest things to recover from is benzodiazepines. And so no, I didn't take those, but yeah, I took sleeping pills for years because if I didn't drink, then I couldn't sleep. And so if I wasn't going to drink, I had to have something to help me sleep. And it took years of not drinking before I realized that I can sleep without help. I mean, years. What, 5 years, 8 years? It was a really long time. Yeah.
So as so now you are 28.
Yeah.
You go through treatment, and I feel like this is kind of a special time to share. This is when we met. We met when
Right.
you were a couple months out of treatment. I was fresh out of high school. We met on my very first morning of college. You
Yeah.
were back at the University of Utah for, I don't know,
The
what
fifth,
is that?
sixth
The
time.
fifth.
I don't know how many
We
times I.
we met in a triathlon class. After you went to treatment, you I think I'll say it in my words. You can say it in your words, but quickly gravitated to moving your body again. You needed
Yeah.
something to attach to help you feel good.
Yeah.
And so we met in a triathlon class, and we started running and biking together. And you were amazing to me. I had also grown up in Utah, not Mormon, and I had never met a really, how I would describe you back then. You were like this earthy man. You were the first person that just fully embraced me and my plant-based lifestyle, and you were just amazing to me. You were unlike any other male I'd ever met in Utah, and I loved being with you. And I remember it was a couple weeks after we had been running and biking together. I was in this pottery class, and you called me. You sounded really nervous. You said, "I have something I need to tell you. I've just finished a therapy session, and I'm 18 years old at this time and so naive, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? Did you roll your ankle?" Thinking physical therapy. And you said, "Actually, I'm a recovering addict." And I remember sitting there in this class, and it felt like everything went silent. Oh, it's making me emotional. But I remember tracing back the first time I'd gone into your apartment, and my eyes zeroed in on your bookshelf. There was an AA book. And I remember thinking to myself, this guy just keeps getting better. His dad must be an alcoholic, and he has that book to learn about his dad.
It's probably all of the best ways that you could ever picture it happening. Um, it took you being a little bit naive and me being so open that I think we couldn't ever replicate again. Yeah.
And also, I grew up with addiction all around me. And I remember having this moment, like it was almost where I was outside my body, having this conversation with myself while you're on the phone, and I'm in the middle of this pottery class, and my mind's like, should I be really scared right now? I'm actually feeling really amazed by this because you were the first person that I'd ever met who admitted that there was a problem, and you were actively working on yourself. And I'd had this awareness that addiction was my comfort zone, that somehow addiction was going to be part of my life. And I remember in that moment thinking, this is how I want to be part of addiction. If it's going to be part of my life, this is how I want it.
Yeah.
And so fast forward a couple months, you say, "Can I call you my girlfriend now?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm going to go to the Peace Corps." And you're like, "Well, that's okay. I'll come with you because," and maybe you can kind of share your where you were at, but there wasn't really a lot of opportunity for you to meet a sober non-Mormon in Utah.
No, there that's very, very true. And it's the non-Mormon sober part that was huge because I didn't know how to meet people. And I think I could have easily just been like, well, I guess this is now when I marry a Mormon girl. But it just never was right for me. And so I didn't have any plans. I was 28. I didn't have any plans. I didn't know what I was doing. I was still teaching swimming lessons. I was still working at the tennis club. Um, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I really liked you, and I knew that being around somebody like you that was excited about life, that was sober, that didn't have a lot of baggage about, maybe just a baggage about life, that I wanted to be a part of it. And I wanted to be with you. And so yeah, going to the Peace Corps, why not?
Yeah. So you're like, well, I'll come with you. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. You have to be married to go as a couple. And you're like, well, that's okay. And I think it was a month later you proposed. And here I am, I think I had just turned 19 when you
I
proposed.
don't think you'd
It
turned
was
19
December.
yet.
It was December. So
Okay.
that you proposed. And then we got married
Okay.
next August. So I was still 19 when we got married.
Yeah.
And you were 28 when we got married. And all odds were against us. We did not know how to
Totally.
communicate. I didn't go into marriage thinking, okay, with this picture of how I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you. I really loved you and I loved being around you, but I didn't look forward. I was really excited to go to the Peace Corps with this really lovely human you. And so that next year was 2008. We applied for the Peace Corps along with many thousands of more
Hundred thousands
people
of
than
people. Yeah.
typical. And we didn't get in because everybody had lost their jobs and was willing to donate their time to the Peace Corps. And again, we didn't know how to communicate. And I'm like, well, I'll just keep working towards college. We'll reapply. So the next year comes and I'm like, okay, let's get our application together again. And you're like, whoa, I've got my dream job now. I'm not going to the Peace Corps.
Yeah.
And and then we got pregnant with our daughter not too long after. And life just kind of happened. And this story could get really long and it's kind of beside the point of where we are, but it's when we had our second child and really truly almost lost ourselves that ended up transforming our lives. And so our second, I think he started developing symptoms when he was like 3 weeks old. He was so little. And we, again, we still didn't know how to communicate. You were a traveling salesman, so you were gone a lot. I was at home in the bitter Montana winter raising our two little kids, and we were not doing well.
Yeah.
Throw in all of these symptoms and through sleepless nights for months, years on end. And it is a miracle that we made it through that time. And I think the only way that we made it through is one day I had had enough. I remember the frost was creeping in the locks on our door, and I called you and said, I don't want to stay here anymore while you are traveling for work. We're buying a motorhome and coming with you. And we still didn't know how to communicate. You're like, are you crazy? I haven't worked so hard to buy this house in this nice neighborhood to live in a trailer.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go for a year, and you agreed to 4 months. And that's, I think, when we, for the first time as adults, got to know ourselves and learned how to communicate. And I think that
Well, and
that's,
it took like 3.5 months of horrible,
yeah.
horrible experiences. And um, again, it was a pivotal moment, pivotal time when everything said that this should be a disaster and that this should be like the nail in the coffin of what our marriage was.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Because a big reason why I couldn't stay in our house anymore is because our son is ripping his skin off and he's trying to pull his
yeah,
ears and his penis off and he's screaming and I'm losing my mind and I'm alone and you come from this western background and you're like, you've got to listen to the doctors, just use the steroid cream.
yeah,
They're the professionals, we don't know what we're doing. And it created this tension for us on top of already being very disconnected.
yeah.
And I couldn't take the pressure of neighbors saying, this is just how boys are. This is normal. So when he was a year and a half, we went in this motorhome, and by the end, we were like, we don't fit into that mold anymore. We don't fit into that life. We want to do this. So we sold the motorhome. We sold all of our stuff, rented our house out long term, and moved into an Airstream where we lived and traveled in for almost a decade and found ourselves, finally learned how to heal our second son. And a couple of years, the only time we'd stopped traveling was to have more babies. So we had our third and we had our fourth. And when our fourth was a couple months old, he started experiencing the same symptoms. So we jumped back in, fully committed to healing his gut, just like we had done with our second. And he healed. And it was at that time where I was like, wait a minute, there's no negative side effects. Will you do this with me? Can we do this? Can our whole family try this? And so I just wanted to share that space in her story because healing was an evolution. It started with us removing ourselves from any societal pressures and being out in the middle of nowhere in silence where there's no service and no Netflix, and we are forced to communicate and to be with our own minds and find comfort in these basics, right? And
Yeah,
I feel
because there was nowhere to hide. We were in a 27-foot trailer that's 8 feet wide. So was that 200 square feet?
yeah,
And it did force us to learn how to communicate. And when Birdie got sick, like, and then got better, it was no longer, in my mind, it was a coincidence that Aki had healed. It didn't make any sense. It was this homeopathic stuff that, it's not, there's no science behind it, is what my thought was. And it was just a one time, we just got lucky. Maybe he did grow out of it. Right. And we were having the products at the same time. Maybe he probably grew out of it. We just have to be giving him these things at the same time. And then when Birdie got sick and his came on like a goddamn freight train, like it was normal, normal, normal. And then like
the
somebody
worst,
dunked him into acid. His
like
body
the
just
worst full body rash
erupted.
that you have ever seen.
It was, and I know exactly where we were. And it just was like, we have got to fix this now.
The west coast of Vancouver Island. And I remember like we
Yeah.
booked it back to the States so that we could have the supplement sent to us.
Yeah. And then seeing him heal was like, once is a coincidence, and two, I think you couldn't really say it just was a coincidence anymore. And that was when we decided to do it all as a family. And I think you were going to ask another question about that.
Well, I would say about halfway through rebalancing our family where we started to experience really big shifts in ourselves and
Yeah.
our energy and our mood, especially, and our sleep. And life had been good. We had made choices where we were living a really fantastic life,
Yeah.
living on the road as a family of six and getting to see the entire United States and Canada and Mexico was magic.
Yeah.
But when we started healing our whole family's gut and really implemented this as a lifestyle, I would say that we went from like, it's so hard because life was good, but we went to a different level of thriving that I didn't know existed. So shortly after we are rebalancing ourselves, we're midway through, and I'm just like, babe, I think I need to share this. I think that families need access to this healing. There's no way that we can be the only ones going through this. Although
Yeah.
it felt like we were because we had never met anybody who had answers or was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen that before. In our travels, do you remember everybody we met? I was like, because there's like a
So
lot of
many nurses.
nurses, and
Yeah.
everyone that we met have you seen this before? What does this mean? What do I do? And nobody had a clue. The answer is
Yeah.
always steroid creams. And so it felt like we were the only ones in the world. And when I dove in and found manufacturers and different people to help me create what now is in the gut rebalance kit and fills the entire only shop, I I think we both thought I was kind of crazy.
I didn't realize we were starting a real business.
Neither did I.
I think I assumed that we'd buy, so the first time we had to buy 500 bottles of cleanse, and I thought, I mean, that probably lasts person. I mean, that'd probably take a couple of years to sail.
Well, and I think we both thought, well, maybe I'll just be able to send it to a couple people and
Yeah.
then we'll just have a lifetime supply. That'll be
Right.
great.
Right.
Because part of my mission in creating these supplements is these are the absolute best quality that I want to take forever. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to create this for my family that matches the standards that I have. And if we get to share it with a few people, how great.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where this started. And so that's 5 years ago now. So the question I want to ask you is, so from going from this dad who's trying to be supportive and just wants to get through, but's very skeptical, really kind of thought this healing with our second child was a total fluke, to where you are today, where you are taking the supplements every day on your own.
Yeah.
It's not me saying, here, you've got to take this at all. This is all self-driven from you.
Yeah.
And you have this awareness where you are really cued in with our kids. You know, you can just kind of see a little fire spark in their eye where you're like, oh, okay, we need to double down our
Yeah.
dosage here for a couple days. Who are you now? Like, tell me about, like, who are
That's a
you
good
now
question.
versus who you were back then? And like, you're not on antidepressants, you don't
No.
take sleeping medications.
No.
And from my perspective, I would say it's quite possible that you are the happiest you've been in at least the almost 2 decades that I've known you.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that I think have changed in my brain, and I think that taking the supplements every day, I'm always a skeptic. Did the taking the supplements every day help my brain clear up? And so uh, I don't know. Uh, but while I've been taking the supplements every day, my brain is cleared up, and I don't need.
You
I have
have brain clarity. You can think more clearly. You have better focus. Is that what you mean?
No, it's more like it's not necessarily focus for me. It's that I can have a good or a bad day and it doesn't mean anything. I have this standard, I have a baseline of where my emotions are, right? And if I uh, am feeling depressed, maybe I'm below that line. But I can just acknowledge that now and just be patient and know that it will get back to my baseline. Whereas previously, and there would be periods of time where that depressive level would be persistent for months and months until it's just debilitating.
So during those depressive episodes, what are you doing?
Well, now I don't have to do anything because I just take the supplements every day and know that I will come back to my baseline. So I do my routine. I try to exercise. I try to journal. All the things that I've never done in my adult life consistently. I meditate or listen to a podcast that elevates my thinking. Go for a walk. Like there's just things that I do to help get myself back to that baseline. But I
Well,
have that baseline because my gut microbiome is now in a healthy state. Because before that, you didn't know it was up, down. There was no baseline. It was just chaos.
chaos. That's the word that I was going to use too. Is it's chaos in your body, and that's what I hear so many adults explaining with rebalancing their gut. And taking the supplements and really committing. And I love that you're talking about meditating and walking and journaling and doing all of that and being mindful to eat a microbiome friendly diet, because it's all of it, right? It's
Yeah.
not just the supplements. It's really embracing this as a microbiome lifestyle. And when all of that comes together, you have this clear baseline of, and I use a different word. I say show up for my process. I'm going to show up
Sure.
for my process every day. If I do my basics, I know I'm going to be okay and I don't have to question. I know what's going on inside my body, and we're all human. For me, my hormones fluctuate throughout my cycle, totally natural, but can be really hard. And instead of having to be like, gosh, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel so terrible? No, I just keep showing up for my process. I
Yeah.
trust that I'm taking care of my body and I just make it through. And so I love that conversation because it's not this like chaotic blurriness of what the hell's happening, or a place that I know you got really comfortable with and was a place of tension early in our marriage, is just getting by.
Well, yeah, I always have told this story that really my assumption, and based on everybody and every person I've ever known and around me, is that you go to work every day, you're exhausted, there's not enough time to do all the things that you want. So you're slightly resentful. Your relationship with your partner is not that great, but everybody sticks it out. And then at the end, there's this retirement idea of that's when you get to take time to relax. And you just are like, the baseline is fairly unhappy, but you just stick it out. And so that was my assumption of what marriage was, to be perfectly honest. That's what I saw. That's what everybody around me seemed to be doing. We were in a very nice neighborhood in Bozeman, Montana, with successful people, and I wouldn't say anybody in there was uh, prospering emotionally in any by any stretch of the imagination. And um, and now I think that I say I'm a skeptic, but the reality is that taking these supplements has changed my life. It's changed the life of you. It's changed the life of our children. It will continue changing us as we move along in our lives. And because we have these supplements, we can understand what's going on with our body. When something's off, we sense it and can see it and feel it, because it's not just this constant state of everything feels terrible and I'm emotionally distracted and a wreck. Like, the baseline is so much better than what my expectations were, that that you notice differences and you go, oh man, yeah, I am tired today. I haven't exercised the last 3 days. I need to go for a walk. I need to go for a run. Or, yeah, I'm worn out. My brain is really busy right now. I just need 10 minutes to not talk to anybody. And because you and I are both on this baseline now, we don't react. You don't go, well, you've been at work all day. If I say, I need to go for a walk, you're not resentful of me. You go, yeah, that you should. That's a great thing. I'm not resentful at you for you going to work and then saying, you know what, I'm just not feeling it today. I need to get a massage and go for a run. We can empower each other to be like, yeah, if you feel it, it's true. We know it, but we also know where we can be. And so it's this crazy understanding of our own bodies that really I don't think people experience. We're just cram it full of all this garbage all day long. We're in an environment that's poisoning us. We're drinking what we think is good water that's killing our microbiome. We're putting lotions and creams on our body that are made out of petroleum. We're eating food that's been genetically modified and our body doesn't understand how to process. we all have constipation or we all have diarrhea. Our bodies are bloated. We look unhealthy. All of these things are happening to everybody out there. And the reality is, all you have to do is get this baseline of a microbiome that's healthy. And then the opportunities are in front of us to keep in a baseline of happiness that is beyond anything that I think anybody ever even thinks about.
I totally agree. There's two parts of this that I want to go deeper into. The first part is our kids and their how they are living life. Because prior to a little over 5 years ago when we really adopted this as a lifestyle, do you remember like there were many parts where it just felt normal, really restless nights, somebody always being in a bad mood. There was always
Yeah.
somebody that was in a bad mood. And at the time, our family was only thriving as much as the weakest link, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like that anymore. We get to hold each other up. And when somebody's having a hard day, we get to hold space for that, but we're not all crashing with that bus. And it's okay.
Well, and there's signs of somebody in distress. Like one of our kids right now is just not quite himself. And he's got horrible gas. Like it is so clear that he, emotionally he doesn't feel quite right, and you can feel it. You can smell it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so
And he's
obvious.
quicker to anger. He's not as patient. He's
Yeah.
snappy. He kind of isolates himself. He wants to be alone more. I'm really painting this picture so that you can, once you establish this balanced microbiome and this is your baseline, you really are invited to pick up on these cues and then you have the tools to support them to get back on
Yeah.
track. And I love having this conversation because there's this illusion that I had when we healed Aki that okay, we're going to heal and then we're going to be done and we get to close that door, and that's not the
Right.
case. And sharing this story right here is really powerful because on our son's behalf, I mean, we went to a week of fiddle camp. We drove to Salt Lake City, Utah. We probably had some of the chlorinated water. We've had so much going on, and all of that equates to a huge disruption in our day-to-day rhythm. It's okay. We
Right.
understand why he's off, which gives us so much more empathy. And we also know, okay, this is what's happening. This is why he's acting this way. He's not just trying to be rude. And it helps empower us to be more kind and gentle parents that can then say, hey, buddy, do you feel like yourself? And then, he puts his head down and says, no. And well, what do you think might be going on? How can we support you? And he has the words to also say, my body doesn't feel quite right. I think my gut needs some extra support. And then we're able to give him double doses of the supplements for a couple days and we get right back on track. Whereas previously, this would be something that would linger for months and get worse, right? And so,
Yeah, and just being able to acknowledge it and go and make choices around it. So we have
right,
been going. And so yesterday, instead of taking him to town to go skating and run some errands, he stayed at home with his sister, and that's what he needed. He needed support through his microbiome and also just some quiet.
just slow down.
And yeah, and we had an incredible, you weren't here last night because you were working, but he was back to himself, and I can hear him right now, his excitement and joy back. and and I think in general, like there's a very consistent pattern that happens to a lot of kids that like, oh, they act out, so they have ADD, or they act out, they can't sit still in class, they must have a learning disability, or like any of these other things where on a bad day, if every day is a bad day, then yeah, you might try to put these points together. The reality is all of those without a baseline, we don't know if any of those things are actually true. We don't know if you really are allergic to peanut butter if you don't have a baseline. we don't really know if you have ADD if we don't have a gut microbiome baseline to base any of the information off of. If your gut is in fight or flight constantly, guess what? You're probably going to have a hard time sitting still in school. What 7-year-old doesn't have a hard time sitting still in school?
First of all,
What
yeah.
7-year-old do you want to have as a factory worker at 7? Right? Like, these are not things that we should expect out of kids. Yet we do every day, and they're doing it on shitty food and gut microbiomes that are an absolute disaster. And so, of course, they're getting medications for ADD, or they're getting diagnosed with learning disabilities, or,
They're being
all
told
of,
it's Miralax indefinitely.
yeah, all of these situations are really symptoms of the thing that is the key to only. And everybody asks, can it cure this, this, or this, or this? The goal, everything is based on the microbiome. And so, yeah, guess what? I bet if you heal your gut microbiome, then you are going to have some experience over here that's going to cure this other symptom, because it's all based in our gut. And getting us to that baseline, you might find that shit, you may be allergic to pistachios or whatever it is. That may
Right.
be a genetic, you may find out that you do have a genetic allergy. It's not going to cure everything. It's not magic, but having a baseline where you can base the information off of, instead of a gut microbiome that is in distress, telling doctors what's going on from that level. Let's get to a baseline, and then things can be uh,
Right.
actually diagnosed.
So when you heal your microbiome and your microbiome is in balance, it reduces inflammation in your body and gives you the opportunity to actually have a reliable test to tell you if you need. But I will say the majority of people who come to Only end up actually healing all of their symptoms
Yeah.
with rebalancing. But if you are somebody who you've gone through a couple rebalances, you've fully followed the entire method, the entire protocol, and you still find yourself struggling with something, you now have this clear baseline to dig deeper and maybe test your house for mold or
Yeah.
get an allergy test done. And I think that's one of the most amazing parts of rebalancing is there really isn't anybody who wouldn't benefit in some way from doing it.
There's no way that anybody in the Western world doesn't have a problem with their gut microbiome. It's just impossible. It's literally impossible. And there's varying levels. And so, like, I think this year I'm going to do an ultimate kit, because I know that there are some things that I need to detox from, that have built up in my body. I've got tattoos. I've had surgeries. I haven't had antibiotics in 30 years. Well, that's not true, because potentially, I don't even know. Did I have antibiotics when I had surgery?
I don't know.
Probably. I don't know. And so, I have taken antidepressants. And so, like, for me, I know that this is a great opportunity to do the ultimate kit. And because maybe I'm not even at my baseline yet. Maybe my baseline is really up here, and I just haven't even gotten there yet, which would be pretty incredible to think of.
Okay, so there's a couple more things I want to talk about. One is talk about libido for a minute because I have invited the women listening to this episode to bring their partners along to really hear your experience and your perspective because what tends to happen is our male partners are more skeptical and resistant like you.
Sure.
And this has been a really huge area of our life that has changed in the last 5 years of
Yeah.
healing our guts is our sex life.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll step back a little bit and even say, 10 years ago, maybe even a little bit more, I was on testosterone supplement because my testosterone was so low. And that's probably, there may be some genetic part of that.
Or
But
repercussion of your addiction
well,
or
right, that's what I was going to say, is that really it was a lifestyle uh, kind of whiplash of being on drugs and alcohol for a decade, right? And so having a new kind of exciting relationship with you, and then 5 years into our marriage or 4 years into our marriage, not feeling that spark anymore and feeling like there was something that needed to happen within me so that I could feel that excitement again. And at the time I was seeing a psychiatrist and was on medicine for depression. I was also on medication for opiate addiction and sleeping pills. And so there was a lot in my system that probably dysregulated it in a lot of ways. And so my libido was very, very low. And I know that from my experience, like, the sexual connection with you is something that is really important in keeping us emotionally connected. And I felt like we were missing that. And so I was on a testosterone supplement, and not that you wanted me to be. I think that
no,
you were.
no, but I was also not interested either. Like I had zero, and it had nothing to do with you.
Yeah,
I come from, sex is this very shamed thing in Utah. I don't know if this is like around
I
the
think
world.
this is pretty much everywhere.
It's
Yeah,
everywhere,
I
but
think it is.
I never I never worked through that. And so I
Yeah,
remember even like the day that we got married, I did not enjoy our wedding because I was so embarrassed that people there knew that after you get married, you go and have sex. Like that's all that was on my mind at our wedding is I was so self-conscious knowing that people knew that. And then even I remember when we were pregnant with Bird, I was at Costco and I was there with my dad and my stepmom and they're like, "I can't believe you're pregnant again." You know how that happens, right? And I just remember being so ashamed and so embarrassed. And so I never enjoyed sex with ever. Like
right.
it wasn't enjoyable to me because in my mind it was bad.
Yeah.
And so, how has that changed over the last 5 years? You can maybe share about for you, and I can share about for me and what that's meant for us.
Well, I think a lot of it is, one, I'm not on any of those medicines anymore and haven't been. So I went off of antidepressant. I went through a depressive period during COVID, which was really hard. And then 3 years ago, I went off of them completely. And one of the reasons I didn't want to go back on them originally was because my libido just goes down so low when I'm on them. And it's
Mm.
so hard to feel engaged emotionally. And so being off them from this time and rebalancing, I don't know, multiple times and staying on a maintenance dosage for, the last couple of years has, and I'm not young anymore. I'm 46. I think our sex life is better than it ever has been. I think we both enjoy it a lot more. I think we both anticipate it in a way that feels healthy. And I think that part of that is that we are both emotionally available to have fun experiences together. And that's one of the fun experiences that we have in our life and we get an opportunity to have together. What about you?
Yeah, for me, I think it's that for the first time in the last 5 years, feel really calm and confident in my body. And I can be with you, and my mind isn't thinking about 500 other things.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's true for every part of my life and is how healing my gut has changed me. I have ADHD and I've never been able to be fully in something and my mind not be hundreds of other places at the same time. And that's that's something that I always experience, especially when it's quiet and dark. Like that's when my mind has historically always been the busiest. And so to be able to be fully present with you is amazing. And mm, I I think that it's because it's all personal. It's never like your lack of interest never had anything to do with me, of course, and my lack of
Yeah.
interest never had anything to do with you. But I think both of us getting comfortable and more confident in our own bodies helps us show up more vulnerably with each other. And my favorite thing that we do is we have a private telegram where, I mean, you're my
Yeah.
boyfriend in our telegram conversation. And how incredible to be married. Is it going to be 18 years?
Yeah.
We got, yeah, we got married in
2007.
2007. Yeah. So 18 years in August, and that you are my boyfriend is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I agree. I think that us both being willing to share what is exciting to us and what is fun without fear. And
What just came to my mind too is maybe somebody's listening thinking, well, that's just because you guys have grown up more. Like this is just aging. And maybe, but
yeah.
why not use tools that are helping you in your favor? And I think a big part of us being more connected in our sex life actually is way bigger than that. It's that we are, I feel supported from you in all areas of my life. And I hope that you feel the same.
Yeah.
And that comes together to create a sex life together where we're partners in every area of our life. And this isn't just like this extra other thing. It's actually an extension of that connection.
Well, I think what I said earlier, actually, now thinking about it, is that I was thinking about it backward, that sex creates that intimacy. And the reality is, I think it's actually the other way around. Like
Hmm.
the intimacy that we have between one another, the support we give each other actually leads to that sexual connection. Is I think that's actually the better way it should be, right?
Hmm, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's if you are not connected throughout your day, throughout life in general, it's really hard to
Yeah.
even want to come together, right?
Yeah, and if you do, it's kind of just not.
Like get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, before we wrap up, I want to ask you a question because we talked all about swimming in the beginning and
Yeah.
it's been coming up a lot lately. And there's different people are in different phases of their healing. Some families are experiencing topical steroid withdrawal. Some families just have really bad eczema. Some families are maybe they don't have any skin symptoms, but they have this awareness that chlorine isn't the greatest for our microbiome health. How do we, their question is, what do you do in the summer? Do you go to the pool? How do we navigate this?
There's been a lot of studies about swimmers in particular and about gut microbiome and depression. And it is a known fact that being in chlorinated environments for extended periods of time destroys your gut microbiome. And that one of the effects of that is depression. And so we know that there's a connection between a destroyed microbiome and depression. And so we also now know that there's a connection between chlorinated environments and a destroyed microbiome. And so swimmers in particular are highly, way higher than the normal population, um, higher rates of depression. Um, and and so I don't think there's any doubt that me spending all of that time at a pool from when I was really little to through my 20s really deeply affected my gut microbiome and my susceptibility to depression. I also tend to have depression in my family. And so it wasn't a stretch to think that I was prone to depression anyways. And maybe this, it's just like, there's a lot of triggering events. It's kind of like addiction. Like we know that there's some, um, if you have some susceptibility to addiction or depression. And then sometimes all it takes is we don't know if it's like the one first time you drink or the 10,000th drink that ticks you over into addiction. It's the kind of same thing with depression. Like, I don't know if it's maybe if I had stopped swimming at I was 14, I wouldn't have had it, whatever it is. But regardless of that, um, it all kind of builds up and can lead to depression. And it did in me.
Well, I want to talk about that for just a second because you touched on something really important is that there are so many things that can be associated with our genetics.
Right.
And it traps us in believing that, okay, well, this is just how it's going to be. And that's how it is. And
Yeah.
you are living evidence that that does not have to be the case, that you get to change the environment of your internal health that changes how your genetics operate.
And and it I mean, they're triggering events, right? And so it's sure you may have some susceptibility genetically to skin cancer or breast cancer or depression or addiction, but it's if you can keep yourself in a healthy environment, you're not going to tick over,
Right.
right? And so because your parents are addicts doesn't mean that you're going to be an addict. What it means is you have a higher likelihood because you're not getting the support that you need, probably in the way that you sleep and the way that you eat and show up at school and the emotional connection that you have from your parents. Like all of those things, it doesn't mean that you're going to be an addict. It means that all of those things are supporting factors that are going to tend to put you into that addict role. You, for example, had all of these opportunity. You had addiction in your family, depression, mental health issues in your family, and yet you kept yourself apart from all of those opportunities to tick yourself over. If you had been a drinker, you would have been a drunk. I just think it would
Oh,
have been right. And
yeah.
so like it probably wouldn't have taken much to tip you over into that, but you didn't. And so you 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 surely have addictive uh, personality traits, but that's the one thing you don't have. You don't drink, so you're not an alcoholic, which is great. Um, okay, so
Question of how do these people navigate swimming? So I would start by saying, first of all, you know best. You
yeah,
know if your child is so inflamed and their skin is so raw and tender that it's probably not in their best interest to go swimming in a chlorinated pool.
yeah,
And we get to make choices all the time. And this is not forever. And the more you honor their healing right now, the sooner they're going to heal and you will have the opportunities to go. And so really seeing it not as a restriction, but as what's the best choice that we get to make right now and then owning that choice and not feeling like your child is missing out because if your child's if we're looking at life through that lens, we're always missing out.
the kids only know they're missing out if we tell them that they're missing out. We
Yeah,
give
it's
them other
turn it
experiences,
up.
they're not missing anything. Yeah.
Exactly. Go swimming in a lake.
We all make choices, right? And I want my kids to swim and I want to go to the swimming pool sometimes. I still go to a swimming pool. I still swim masters swimming. Like I still do these things because they are a joy to me. I still find joy in being in a pool and being in water. And I don't always get an opportunity to go to a lake. And so I took the kids swimming 2 days ago to the city pool, which is probably the most highly chlorinated pools that exist because there's hundreds of people in them. But it's outdoors. So that probably helps mitigate some of the inhalation of the chlorine. Um, and to be honest, it's one of the things that I'm willing to compromise on. I don't think that they're going to be on a swim team. It's not because I've chosen it. It's just not something that's on the ability of us to do based on where we live and how we live our life. A swim team is just out of options. And so I don't have to make that choice. We don't have to make that choice. But in general, like if there's an opportunity to go swimming, we want to go swimming.
Well, and I love how you framed all of that, because that's the whole point of this, is that our bodies are so healthy and resilient because of the intentionality that we have every single day, right? That every single day we are showing up for our microbiome friendly diet. Like, we don't vary from the foods that we eat. We are taking the supplements every day. Every day we are proactively nurturing our microbiome so that we are strong and resilient. And fear isn't dictating what we do or don't do. We are living our life free however we want to live,
Yeah.
because we have the confidence in our bodies. And so I would never not go swimming because I'm afraid that it's going to hurt our microbiome. Rewind to 6 years ago when bird's skin was really, really, really bad, I probably wouldn't
Yeah.
have taken him swimming then. But today, where we are, and we are so strong and so healthy, yeah, let's go
Yeah.
swimming. You want a tattoo? Get a tattoo. Maybe do a little research and see that your tattoo artist is using a healthier ink, and nurture your body before and after you have the surgery that you're going to have in the fall to get bolts and screws removed from your leg.
Yeah.
You have this awareness. You get to go into that knowing how to protect your body so that you come out of it just as strong as you went in. And
Yeah.
that's the whole point of this. It's not healing just to heal. It's healing to then have this freedom to live the life that you want to live, and not make decisions from fear, but from intention and confidence.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great way to put it.
Okay, is there anything else that you feel like we should talk about in this episode?
I'm grateful for you. I think that everybody should be grateful for you. You've the amount of energy that you put into this business behind the scenes, I think, is shocking. I don't think anybody. I think a lot of people look at a successful business owner as they have some skill set that made them uh, succeed. They had family money or support from somebody. You didn't have any of those things. All you did was have a desire to share, and you learned everything that you needed to learn along the way to be able to create this business that is one in a million, and share this with people all over the world. And it's really it's not it's really fucking incredible. And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful to be a part of Only. I've quit my other job, and this is my job now. And so I'm grateful to be a part of this business where it's not just selling another thing. It's, changing people's lives, and it's changed our lives. And I'm unbelievably grateful for you. So thank you.
Thank you, babe. Being life partners is so beautiful with you. And then it's really quite recent that we are full on 100% both committed business partners.
Yeah.
And wow, it's really taking life to the next level with you.
Yeah. It's pretty incredible.
I love you.
I love you too. Bye, sweetie.
Before we wrap up, I love closing out the podcast with answers to your questions and your transformations. This is my favorite way to stay connected and support you, no matter where you are in your healing journey. If you want to submit a question, I open up a question box every month in my Instagram stories and inside our private community, the Rebalancing Collective. Watch for those. Send your questions and make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so you are sure to hear the answer. Now, let's get into it. A transformation, a question from someone who is never rebalanced, and a question from someone currently rebalancing. This is kind of a long transformation at the end of a pretty long episode, but I encourage you to listen to the whole message because there are so many powerful takeaways. Here's the message this mama sent me. My panda's child suffered many episodes of strep that would not clear. Years of antibiotics helped clear the strep and helped with their many panda's symptoms, such as OCD. But in my heart, we wanted to stop them eventually, as we know long term use is not good for many reasons, but we were helpless nonetheless during that time. Then the good old strep triggered psoriasis and eczema. This past winter, fall and winter was the worst my child got. Psoriasis formed and then rapidly covered their whole body. Many visits with many specialists and multiple dermatologists, as many just wanted to prescribe topical ointments. My child was reacting to them due to overuse or getting skin withdrawals, making it worse than better. Also, the side effects of using those long term was scary enough. One doctor even tried to tell me that a low dose chemo drug, a darn chemo drug, would be safe for my child to aid in their psoriasis, that the side effects are not much to worry about, and that they did not believe that food has any impact on my child's skin condition. Mind blowing. Needless to say, we stopped seeing them after that one visit. We finally met with a dermatologist who listened. We agreed to try UV therapy. We also started using your children's gut rebalance kit when we started the UV therapy, along with the Biome skin kit. We are 3 months in and seeing a drastic change. To be honest, I was very skeptical and nervous to start your product. Was it too good to be true? Was my main thought. I was completely wrong. My child's gut is finally healing and off all prescriptions. I never thought we would see this day and see my shining child from years of trying to get them out of that black hole. We just purchased the daily gut health maintenance to keep it part of our daily routine. I cannot thank you enough for your time, effort, and the love you pour into your products. As once a lost mama, I feel so much relief. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow, it's transformations like this that really remind me of my why here. Just 3 months in, and this child is thriving after years of suffering. Their gut is finally healing. They're off prescriptions. The psoriasis is clearing and the sparkle is back. This is the ripple effect of healing the body from the gut outward. When we clear the bad bacteria, yeast, mold, parasites, and toxins, the entire body begins to heal. The skin, immune system, nervous system, every part of our body. If you've been told that your child's symptoms are normal or just something to manage, I hope that this transformation gives you hope. You don't have to settle. Now to this week's questions. The first one, how do I get rid of pinworms? Pinworms can be incredibly hard to get rid of, and they thrive when the gut is imbalanced. The ultimate option of the gut rebalance kits are designed to clear, again, bad overgrowths, including pinworms, while replenishing your gut with the beneficial bacteria to build lasting resilience. This is what sets the rebalance kits apart from most other cleanses. Most just focus on eradicating and taking out the bad without rebuilding the good. This leaves your body very vulnerable and susceptible for those pinworms or bad overgrowths to move back in. Many families have seen pinworms fully clear with this protocol. You will also want to get a bottle of Relieve, or soon to be renamed Magic Stuff, because it's truly magic. You will apply this to the anus first thing in the morning or right before bed to help kill the eggs that the pinworms come to the surface to lay. Also, you want to wash your hands frequently as pinworms spread like wildfire. Our second question, excess vaginal discharge during the cleanse. Is this a thing? Yes, this can definitely be a thing. Excess vaginal discharge during rebalancing is actually one of the ways that your body releases overgrowths like yeast, bacteria, mold, and in some cases, even parasites. It's your body detoxing through your vaginal canal, which is a direct extension of your microbiome. As your microbiome moves into a state of balance, the discharge will regulate and your body will feel more aligned overall. Thank you for sticking with me all the way to the end of this episode. I will be back next week. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend or a family member who's ready to lead her family's healing. Everything mentioned in this episode is linked down below for you in the show notes. Be sure to subscribe to the Nourish newsletter, also linked down below, so you never miss an episode. I will email you the latest episode every Tuesday morning. Everything shared on this show is for educational purposes only, not intended as medical advice. Until next time, trust your body and follow your gut.